So now he's in the level builder. And what this is it's just like single player. You're flying around, and the only difference is that now we can put stuff into the game. So he can cruise around, maybe drop some objects. Once he's dropped some objects and he has a good idea of where he wants to go, he can put in some checkpoints. What we just saw him do there is respawn at the beginning of the level. We put that in so that after you've dropped in a lot of objects, you can start over and see what you've done by flying through it in order. You'll notice there's some residual stuff that we were seeing in single player. The guidelines from checkpoint to checkpoint are still there. With the level builder, we wanted to make sure that it was a development tool first and something pretty to play with last. So we didn't spend a lot of time making sure that it was super visual and super friendly, but it is highly functional. So once he's got objects in the game that he likes, he can save the level by just hitting the home key, or the end key rather. And if he turns around and you can change the skybox a little bit, make it look pretty if you want a nice different background. And you can also reload from your last save in case you've done something that you don't like. So if he pops in a checkpoint that he realizes shouldn't be there, then you can just take it out and reset to the way it flows. Once he's made this level, all he needs to do is save it, go out, exit the game. Once he goes back in, it's in the single player menu and you can fly through it. I don't know if he made a level that's at all interesting or really flyable, because I wasn't really paying attention. So we'll see him pick a ship.
It's not going to be interesting. But just to prove that it works.
So now we see all the checkpoints and objects he made are in the game, including his beautiful space station. There was a lot of painstaking work put into this game. As we can see, we have some pretty smooth performance between the two. So next, and this is the crux of the game really, multiplayer. We wanted to make sure that this was a racing game, and what good is a racing game if only one person can play? So we developed a networked multiplayer where people can compete for the best time, shooting each other with the utter chaos that follows. Different levels will have different feels to them and will allow for different kinds of flying, which adds a lot to the game. How we did this is, it was very much a learning experience for us. Networking is something we haven't really done in projects before this point, and we needed to make sure that we had it so that it was good enough so that two people can play on a LAN and not see any real discrepancies on the two computers. So we had to come up with a real-time system where updates were sent at a decent enough intervals, but it wasn't over, causing lag on the server or anything like that. The system we have set up is two clients will connect to a server, and as messages are sent to that server about update information like health, your position, whether or not you're firing, the server will relay all of those messages back to every other player. Now we all know that computers aren't continuous things, they can only operate discretely. So we can only send an update every so often. To compensate for this, we had to build in a simplified prediction system so that your client will basically continue calculations of the other people's movements until it gets another update from the server saying, it's actually here, as opposed to just, sliding forward or something. And once we got that working out, and it took some trial and error, then we had a really smooth interface, and I think we can demo it for you after Roger talks a little bit more.
All right, the last two things I'm going to talk to you about are a couple things that actually made it into the game at the last minute. A couple weeks ago. First of all, sound. You'll notice there's a lot of variation in the sound in the game. You can hear as you throttle up, you can hear the engines kind of spooling up. You hear all the different collision sounds and everything. Truth be told, there's actually only about 6 sound files for this game. A lot of what we're doing is modifying these sound files in code. So like that engine sound is one sound, and we just change the pitch and the speed of it as you throttle up. Also, the collision sounds, one collision sound for any type of collision in the game. We just modified it based on what type of collision it is to make it play lower, higher, longer, shorter, that sort of thing. The other thing is, if you notice when I was out of bounds earlier, you can see the screen blur. That's being handled by a shader. Now, a shader is just a program that runs on a graphics card. It's GPU programming. The term shader is kind of a misnomer. It's not actually a shader per se, but they were originally developed to make lighting in games look better and run faster, so the name kind of stuck. But we're using a pixel shader here in this case for that. Just read in the scene, blur it up. This sort of thing could never be done just on the CPU previously, so it's, I mean, shaders have been around for a little while, but they're more and more common now, and now us college kids are using them for a project, so it's pretty cool. Actually, there's five passes right now the shaders are going through. So this game, after the scene renders, is actually seen as being re-rendered 5 different times to get all the effects set the way we want them to be. As you can imagine, this does actually cause a lot of slowdown though. So on lower spec computers, you can turn it off. There's an option in the options menu to turn most of the shader effects off and bring it back down to 2 passes instead of the 5. But it looks pretty cool. Do you want to show them the difference between with the shaders on and shaders off? Well, it's pretty stark difference, yeah.
If we go into our lovely options menu, we can turn off the full screen glow, and you'll really see a difference in the multiplayer. It'll look sort of flat and not very busty. So we look around and notice, especially in the background, like that bright spot isn't as blinding as it used to be. So if we quit out and turn that back on, you'll really see the difference. Let's go up. Is that
You can see there's just a lot more highlights on all the objects, and there's actually, if there's a bright spot behind your ship, you can actually see it kind of blooming around the ship a little bit. Just a nice little effect. Completely pointless for gameplay, but it looks cool. Alright, so I think that's about it for that. So let's go ahead and demo multiplayer. Show you how that all works out. Alright, I've got a server running on this laptop right here, so I can go ahead and connect to it. And again, we see the same ship builder we saw in single player, but now the only difference is we've got a little player list and a chat lobby, so you can talk to your friends here while you're waiting to get in.
Once we're ready to join the game, we each type a command, and the username list is updated to indicate the readiness. The same rules apply for weaponry. If you can't, if you've exceeded your power limit, it will not let you join. But once you're set up, then you're free to go. So once we're ready, so we'll both pop in game. As we can see, we have some pretty smooth performance between the two. Roger's better at this time.